You counted in your head, 6 days, 5 nights. You haven't been able to stand. You can't remember the last time you had a bite of food or a drop of water. Your stomach turns as the sweat rolls down your forehead from the nonstop 90-degree weather. Your senses are shot. You hear slow, heavy footsteps pounding against the dry dirt outside. The latch outside the hot box quickly unlatches from the brass lock with a snap. The door slowly cracks open. A ray of light you haven't seen for 6 days shines through and burns your eyes. You flinch. Suddenly, the door swings open. A rough hand grabs you around your neck and throws you into the coarse dirt. Face down, unable to get up, the man's boot crushes into your ribs and you hear a crack. A bulky gun stock slams into your face. You are a prisoner of war, with no civil rights, no freedom, and no will to live. The face of your loved ones pops into your head, and you know you have to find that will. Prisoner of war is the title these men are given. A prisoner of war is a person captured and taken by the enemy during combat. These men are very brave and courageous to fight against an unknown country in an unknown place, to watch the blood of their friends spill onto the battlefield, to fight through their capture of the enemy, and to survive to see their family and loved ones again. Our nation has suffered through 3 particular wars where many American POWs were taken. World War II in Germany and Japan, and the Bataan Death March in German concentration camps, Vietnam, and the Korean War. They should be honored in the United States history. One reason I am very interested in POWs is I have an ancestor 6 generations ago named Charles O. Roseberry. He was a POW. He was a private in the H Company of the 1st Wisconsin Cavalry. He was captured on April 13, 1864, near Cleveland, Tennessee. Charles was taken to the infamous Andersonville prison, which is known to people as a place to go die. He was part of a small outpost of 25 men that was attacked at Mink Springs. They were attacked by 1,500 Confederate cavalry soldiers. All but 6 were captured and taken prisoner. Charles died in prison. My great-grandfather went into the Army in 1943. He was stationed at Fort Leavenworth. He was quite an excellent carpenter like his dad. While he was there, he taught woodworking to the prisoners of war. He is a reason that I am very interested in prisoners of war. A local POW in Osage City, Kansas, named Harold Lusk, has a very interesting story of his experience in World War II. Harold was drafted into the war in 1942. He at first wanted to be in the Navy, but he did not get to choose, so he was put into the Air Force. He was stationed in England and was a tail gunner in a B-17 bomber plane. His first mission, he was in the process of a bombing raid over Germany. They were attacked by a German fighter and were shot up pretty bad. The crew bailed out over Poland. Harold reflected. It was a very cloudy day, and I broke through the clouds. And I went to pull the ripcord on my parachute, and I realized my parachute was on upside down. I fixed it and got my parachute to open. I landed in a farmer's pasture, almost on an old cow. Now, if I would have landed on her, I would have ridden her right out of there and might not have been captured, Mr. Lusk said, laughing. On this day, May 1st, 1943, he became a prisoner of war. After bailing out of the B-17 and after being taken prisoner, Harold never saw his Air Force buddies again. Harold was taken to Stalag 4 near Chichow, Poland. His camp was very sparse and barren. The prisoners would often eat grass for food and would eat old turnips and raw potatoes. Mr. Lusk was one of the first 18 prisoners in this new camp. Later, he was moved to a more permanent camp. When he left Stalag 4, there were 140,000 prisoners in the camp. He was put onto a train in the dead of winter. The prisoners were piled into boxcars. The men on the outside of the boxcars froze to death, but the men in the middle survived the ride. After they arrived in Berlin, Germany, the POWs were forced on an 86-day march to Stalag 7A. It was one of the coldest, most brutal winters in German history. On this 86-day march, Harold Lusk and 3 other men decided they were going to break loose. They all ran in one direction. Mr. Lusk escaped for a day or 2, but was found by a farmer in his barn looking for something to eat, and was trapped. Harold was caught and put into a potato cellar. He was put back into the march and would often break away from the formation to steal eggs to eat and survive. At Stalag 7A, there were 140,000 prisoners. At night when the guards would leave, they would let guard dogs loose in the prison. The men would lead the dogs to their window, growl back at the dogs, hit them in the head with bed slats, and drag it in to gut it out and put a handful of meat into their pocket. The guards would also bring in dead horses that were killed during bombing raids, and the men would cut them off some meat. On the day Mr. Lusk was liberated, the men couldn't find any guards and they kept hearing noises that sounded like a tank. Mr. Lusk remembers this day very well. I was standing there and the tank came riding along the fence. A man came out of it and asked me what I was doing there. I responded, well, I can't get out. And then the man laughed and drove the tank right through the fence. He took down about 80 feet of fence and we piled out of there like bees out of a hive. This was on April 28, 1945. After he was liberated from the camp, Mr. Lusk and a Siberian officer went walking through the town and stopped at a bakery that had been abandoned and stuffed their pockets full of cookies. Soon he and his friend heard water running and found a river not too far from the town and stopped to take baths. Harold later hitched a ride on an LST boat back to the U.S. His boat was caught in a typhoon and Harold said, I thought it'd be crazy to survive a prison camp and to die from drowning. But Harold made it safely to the U.S., where he then took a train to his hometown, Osage City, Kansas. This train, in fact, ran through the old Osage City depot and actually stopped. He has been there ever since. He remembered with a smile, I'll never forget the day I got home on the 1st of July, 1945. We stayed up all night just talking. Mr. Lusk said, referring to his mother and his family. These men have very interesting stories to tell of their hardships, determination, and will to live. Why not celebrate these men for their amazing sacrifices that they made to our country?